In this video we will learn how to create simple 3D objects out of our 3D pattern. Just choose one of these patterns, for example this one, and zoom in and just have a look what kind of polygons I want to extract. And I think this part looks quite good, so I just go inside and just select these polygons. I have to detach them. What I do, I just go into Edit Polygon, scroll down to Edit Geometry, go into Detach Settings, and in Settings I want to say Detach as Clone and just name it 3D Object 01. Okay. Okay, when I did it, you can already see that here's a new geometry, and this new geometry is something which is not cut out, it's just a copy of some of these polygons. And here again I go into Isolate Selection and we look at this geometry properly. The first thing we can see that the pivot point is still not in the center of this object because it's still related to the big surface. So I just select my object, I go into Hierarchy Effect Pivot Point and say Center to Object, and I just leave my menu pivot point, and I also move my object to the center of my origin, and just move it down a little bit. Doesn't have to be completely precisely. If you want to do it properly, you can also do it like this. I just move it again so we see the difference, and I'll just say right mouse click, and in right mouse click I say absolute scale is 0, in Y direction it's 0, and in Z direction it's 0, and now it fits absolutely nicely in our origin point. If we zoom in and look at our geometry properly, you can already see that this is not designed perfectly. There are just some vertex points and they don't meet, which is definitely an issue if you want to build it. And there are also other things. So what I do to compare at the end of the day my results, I just copy this to the right like this as a copy, object 02. Okay, and with this object 02 we want to do some optimizations. Okay, the first thing I do is I just select all vertex points. All vertex points are selected, and I want to weld these vertex points. So just go into weld, and before it were 14 and now there are 11 vertex points. But if I zoom in again, for example to this point, you can still see that these are still 3 vertex points, and in this terms whatever you do in terms of the amount of weld, you just don't want to weld together. So there is a big issue here. Okay, there are other parts of how you can optimize this actually. There's one feature which is quite handy, and this feature is called Turn to Poly. If you use Turn to Poly, then the structure of the polygon will be optimized. And if I now go again into Weld, and you can also just choose the Vertex Weld modifier, then you can see that it already welded these points together with a threshold of 0.1 centimeters, which is actually really good. And if I don't use this Turn to Poly, then you can see that it didn't have an impact. So you really need this Turn to Poly to restructure our polygons a little bit. Okay, the next thing I want to do is at the end of the day there should be something like a 3-dimensional object, for example also like a furniture, come out of this, and I just measure the dimension. If I go into my helpers tape, switch on my vertex and just say 3D mode, then I can just measure this length, and this length has 9 centimeters. It's definitely something I can't work with. It has to be something much bigger. So what I do is I just draw a box next to this with a dimension of 100 by 100 centimeters, 100, and the same in Y direction, 100 centimeters, and also in terms of height. Okay, and I just select both objects like this, and I just scale them so they get more into the direction of of a furniture. Let's see what comes out of this. Just a little bit like this. If you want to do this properly, then you just have to calculate this with right mouse click and put the right scaling factor inside. Okay. Okay, let's move my object out of my cube again and just zoom in, and if you just look at this object properly, and what I want to do actually, I want to give this a little bit of a dimension. And also here we just scaled it, and if I go into my scale function, you can just see that this has a scale factor of 1372. And you need this reset XForm to bring it to a scale of 100% again. So I just go into, select all my objects, go into utilities, say reset XForm, and say reset selected. Perfect. And I just choose my first object again. If I go into scale, I can see that this is 100%, and this is really, really good. Okay, now there are actually two versions to give them these two objects a dimension. My helpers cube I just delete, and just prepare, make a copy of this, so I have actually 4. And let's look at the first one, and this is actually the shell modifier. I do it first with this one. This is a shell modifier, and if I go into my modify and just go into shell, here we go. Then you can see that it looks really good. I can give this an inner amount or an outer amount. Here you have an outer amount of 5 centimeters or of 1 centimeters. And one thing you always should do in your setting of shell modifier, on the low part you always have to switch on straighten corners, which is off by default, because normally 3D Studio Max is more interested in smoothing characters like people, and if you want to have this around your nose, you want to have different kind of thicknesses. In these kind of geometries we want to have everything with the same thickness, so always use straighten corners when you really want to have the same dimension going around. This is a really good result. And if you put on another edit poly modifier, and you just go in properties in your graphite modeling tools properties and just say hard, then it looks exactly the way we want to have it. Okay, let's learn some things. The first thing I have to learn is that this XForm is really important. If I switch on the XForm, then you see that something happened. The dimensions are definitely not like 4 centimeters anymore. It's completely too thick because it's still related to the scale of 1300 something. And so you have to use the XForm that underneath your or on top your shell function works properly. So always if you scale something and the shell function that looks weird, then use the XForm underneath, and it works then already better. Okay, so that's the first method we can use, but we also want to look at this with our first object, which is actually not optimized. It's this one. Okay, this one also has the XForm, which is fine, but if I put a shell modifier on top, then you can see that it doesn't look good. There is an opening here, and I think we are already quite lucky that it's not completely distorted, because sometimes this could be that it's really like flipping in all directions. But if you start to add my modifiers which I used before, like first this turn to poly, then you can already see that there's difference with turn to poly. It looks differently. And if I on top put this vertex world underneath, then you can see that it works really well, and we really needed this turn to polygon and turn to vertex world to make this happen properly. And by the way, I normally don't use turn to G-poly, I just use the modifier turn to poly, and yeah, this already looks quite good. By the way, if I use this order, it looks better with turn to G-poly, and with our first example, this turn to poly was absolutely fine. Okay, look at we want to look at this option in para3D. I just choose my other examples and I go into isolate selection, and with para3D you have a little bit more options in terms of how you want to control it. And I just choose my first object, which has all these X-forms, and my turn to poly. I just put a edit poly on top. I don't think that I need this, but I think it's always a good start for para3D to have an edit poly on top. Just go into my para, say assign controller, and go into create. Okay, here we go. I just move to my para object node, and I just have to add a node like this disassemble node and connect it with my para to my para object, which I did right now. And then I have to see what kind of functions I need. Merge objects always means that you that polygons which have an angle in this terms more than less than 5 degrees will be there will be a cut inside. I can use this, but actually I think it will not have any impact. I can decide for a thickness, for example, like 2 centimeters, and I just use this miter joint and go into disassemble. Here we go, and that's it. This is already looks really good. And we can compare it to our shell function. I think it looks better than our shell function. We just look at this later on, and you can have different kind of joints, and let's look what this looks like. There's an overlap. It's not trimmed, and here this is trimmed properly. So there are a lot of options you can go through. If you go back to the first one and say disassemble now, you can just select these objects, select para members, and if you move it to the side, you can see that this has really clear geometry. And if we compare this to our shell function, you can see that the geometry looks slightly different. The left one is our shell function, the right one is done with para3D. There are also single pieces with a wide angle, and it's just a decision in which direction you want to go. If you want to build this, you should definitely use para3D. Also in para3D, if you want to have this together, you can make something like a snapshot copy. I go into para and choose my snapshot, connect my snapshot with my disassemble in para here like this, okay, and I just want to have the type editable poly, combine all single objects to one object, number of snapshots 1, and you can move it a little bit so you can see this slightly better. For example, like yeah, let's move it 1 centimeters, 1 meter in all direction, and I just go into create snapshot, and let's see where our snapshot is. I just select it and then go select para member, and this is our snapshot. I turn around. Okay, this is our snapshot based on our para disassemble, and this snapshot is again with all my surfaces, but they're just together as one object, which sometimes also could help quite well. Okay, the last thing we want to do, we just want to look at my object which does not have all my weld and transform poly modifier. This one, I just choose it. I just go into para3D and just say assign controller. Here we go. That's the other object, and I disconnect my disassemble. And also here, close it. Okay, and I connect it again with my other object, sorry, my entrance with my para node object. Like this, I go into disassemble, and that's the same setting like before, just connected to my new surface, and let's see what's happening. Okay, it looks like this. They're a little bit like these small explosions, and whatever I do, I can optimize it a little bit, but it doesn't get better. And here you definitely should look at your geometry, and your geometry is like this when you add this weld function, and if you add this transform G poly modifier, then you are much better off, and then you get a good result with para3D, and most of the time, or if it's not too complex, also with your shell modifier. The last thing I want to do, I just want to import it to my 3D scene. I just choose my first object, rename it to object 3D object A, and just go to my other object, this one, and just name it to 3D object B. I just save my scene as 3D objects. Okay, and next step, I just open my 3D room. Okay, here we go, and I now just have to go into 3D Studio again, say import merge, and I just go into my 3D objects, and I named my object, so I know it's 3D object A, it's 3D object B, and I import this and just see where they are at the end of the day. And it could be that they're on a hidden layer. It's there on the layer default, because I do on the layer default. And this was switched off, and here are my 3D objects. I can just move them to my space, and also have to move them up like this, and the first one, and here comes the second one. Okay, and if I want, I can also just import one of my patterns. Okay, go import, say merge, and this is my huge pattern collection. I just choose 2 of them. Yes, I want to use my scene material, and these are my pattern, and I just take this one and just move it to my objects like this, and I just can say, let's make a table out of this. Okay, here we go. Okay, I turn this one around. And the pattern goes down a little bit. Also here would be probably good if I just center my pivot point. And the next surface I turn around and like this, 90 degrees. If you use your snap function in terms of turning, then you can do it precisely. I also scale this a little bit, and scale it in a way that it really fits to the back of the room. A little bit like this. Okay, here we go, and I move it to the back, somehow like this. And the last thing I just do is I just give these objects material, and I, for example, just say that these 2 objects get this orange material, and the table is more like something like white, and my back surface probably gets something like this concrete material. Sorry, this was the wrong one. Like this one, and I just see that I didn't say assign material to selections. Okay, and here the same. Just go into assign material to selection. Okay, and then just see that we find a good position. Just move my camera in my top view, and it's camera 0.1, which I actually selected. And so I can adjust it a little bit. I can also, with H key, choose my target point, and I can also move my target point that it's clearly centered, for example, to my surface. And yeah, let's optimize it a little bit. Also go up, slightly up. And with my object, I also didn't have a clear idea of what I wanted to do. And so let's see how I can use it in a better way. And for example, like this one, and I turn it around. Okay, and this one I also move up like 90 degrees, and move it up again, and I just turn it around. Okay, and let's just see what this visualization looks like. What it asked me, 3D Studio, that all my objects need a UVW map, that my materials fit a little bit better. So let's see what I can do. I can just choose my objects, this one, and I just add a UVW map, and I always use this box mode. And this one too, I just add a UVW map, and I also use my box mode. And I can copy it with right mouse click, can say copy, and I just paste it also on my big wall, just say right mouse click and paste. So all my objects have a UVW map, and next thing I just go and make another visualization, and here I don't have any mistake anymore. The result doesn't look too bad, but the back looks really weird. It was just one material, and this material looks too big, and what was missing actually was this X form again, because I scaled it, but this X form was just from another scaling for my pattern to 30 centimeters. So if I just if I just select it and I just go into scale, we can see it's again the scale of 1461. And if I just choose this object and say reset X form again, then we just see what's happening. If I just put this X form underneath my UVW map, then it already looks much better, because my material is related to 100%, and so it's much better in terms of dimension. Okay, here we go. This already looks much better. This is with my X form after my transformation, and this is without my X form, and so that's a much better result. And finally, I just show you very few other things. If I want to give this several materials, you have options to do this. The best way of doing it is just add an edit poly on top. And just go into your material editor and just use something like a multi-sub object. I just go into get material browser is opening. I go into materials, and this time the only way where I use standard materials is the multi-sub objects. It's a little bit like a big bunch of flowers, 10 objects, 10 materials. I only want to have in this term, let's say 2. And now I only have 2 material. The first material should be again this concrete material. So I just scroll down to the lowest point, and in my sample slot, this is actually my sample slot, I just choose, let's go down, I just choose this concrete as the first one, as an instance. I just go up again, here go to parent, and I just choose my second one, and this one should be in my sample slot, this metal surface, it's this one. Okay, just double click on metal as an instance, perfect. I go up again, and the only thing I now have to do is first my object, my pattern should obviously get this material with assign material to selection, or just drag and drop. That's the first thing. The second thing is you just have to go into your polygons. I select all polygons, and here underneath there's something like a material ID, and the concrete material has ID number 1. And if I choose it to material number 2, then you can just see that now all my objects have the other metal surface. So let's select all of them again. Let's set it to number 1. And what I want to do is I want to give these hexagons material ID number 2. So I just change it to material ID number 2. Here we go. And if I close it and deselect it, then we just can see that my object consists of 2 materials. Number 1 is my concrete material, number 2 is my metal material, and the last thing I also want to show you is that, of course, you can change the daylight system. If I just select H, press the H button, and I just go into daylight, which I do right now. This is my daylight system. Then you can change over motion the time, for example. Just change the time and you can see what's happening. The sun goes lower and the sun goes depends on higher, and this is more or less like the sunset. And one big advice, always see that direct light comes into your room, otherwise your scene will collapse because the light doesn't have anything to reflect. And so you always should change that with your north direction, somehow like this. And I just go to something like 6 o'clock in the afternoon again, and or let's go to 5 o'clock. Sorry, 5 o'clock. Okay. And this is possibly actually a little bit too bright, so I just go into light, environment, exposure control, and here's a little bit like a render preview. If you go into your render preview, then you can go into exposure volume and make it brighter. The smaller the number is, the brighter it is actually, and I'll just go and just say it like 11.5. You can adjust the white point. It's a little bit like with a SLR camera, which is also sometimes really important. I just change it to 6500 again, and here I have the feeling it's probably better if I just say exposure value 12. And now we have a last look at our visualization. I go again and just say render production, and let's see what comes out of this. Okay, that's definitely too bright. If you look at the one before, it obviously looks quite different. It was already a bigger rendering. You can change this in your render setup. If I go into my render setup, you can see there's a width, there's a height, and if you just want to have a small test render, then you could better go to something like 600 to 400. If you have a high-end visualization, then it's more like 1600 or probably like 2000 pixel, and that also takes much longer. And if you don't like this relation between width and height anymore, then just turn off this little lock, and then you can just change it actually the way you want to have it. Thanks for watching.